Welcome to our webinar this evening, Anatomy of an Interpretation. This is Terry White, and I am the program coordinator for the Marie Center, and I welcome you, and I'm glad you could join us. This is a collaboration between the Marie Center and the Katie Center. I have a few housekeeping items that I need to go through with you. Captioning and interpreters are provided. The streaming window opens automatically. There is a tab for the audio and video on the far right. Click on the bottom corner and the menu will drop down. Click Detach Panel. Then you can resize the video box. To open the captioning, click on the captioning icon on the toolbar.
Hi everyone, just testing to make sure everybody can hear me okay and see the interpreter okay. Well, welcome and thank you for coming, or maybe there should be another word for this since we're here virtually, but either way. Let's start with introductions. I'm Rhonda Jacobs and I'm here in Maryland. I'm the chair of the National Task Force on Deafblind, on Deafblind Interpreting. And we're happy to be collaborating on this webinar with the Katie and Marie Centers, and we thank them for making this possible. And now to find a little bit about you and who's here, and also so that you can learn your way around the various buttons and the chat box. If you can all type into the chat box, which is on the bottom left-hand of your screen, what you do, if you're an interpreter or an educator or whatever other role you may have, and where you are from. I'll give everybody a minute to find that. Everybody see on the lower left-hand corner of the screen, there's a window where you can type in the chat box. Just so I know you're all out there, so we can have some interaction here. We'll be talking back and forth throughout the session, so it'll be good to know where that is and how to navigate that a bit. So if you can just say where you're from and what you do. And I'm hoping everybody has access to that. Just checking with Joshua to make sure everybody has access to the chat function. I know sometimes that can get turned off. Okay, so we'll test out the other tool here on the participant. Oh, there you go. Okay. Good. We've got you all in. Great. Hi, Laura. Hi, Richard and Teresa. Okay, good. Now we know everybody is able to get in. So we're going to check out the other function that we'll be using here. On the participants box, there are 4 icons on the top of that, and on the far right one is a check box. So if you mouse over that check mark, there'll be a yes and a no button down there. So if you can vote yes or no if you were here for the last webinar on process model for deafblind interpreting, or if you saw it from the archive, either way. Okay, good, thanks. And I will clear that. So about half of you. And now let me know how many of you have at least some fair amount of experience working with deafblind people. Okay, about half or so. Right now, exactly half. Okay, very good. Just moving my boxes around here. So we just did the introductions part, and to start out, we'll do a quickie overview of the process model for deafblind interpreting that we did last time, and then we'll go from there. So this is a working model based on the works of Kalonimus and Coakley, and it's put into the form that you see here by Ron Coffey, who's no longer with us when we were in graduate school at Western Maryland College. And the 7 boxes shown here are the steps that one goes through at a very basic level from the time a message comes in until the time it goes back out. So just reading across here, the 7 boxes are receive, then analyze, sender, release form, meaning, analyze, receiver, add form, and then deliver. And the 2 lower boxes are the monitor and feedback functions. And those are what happens during and after, while all those other 7 boxes are happening. And the arrows that are going in all directions show that the monitor and feedback functions are happening during all parts of the process. So now we'll expand on this a bit. So the first box, receive, one takes in a message, whether signed or spoken, and this is the speaker input, and it is what happens at the sensory level. But one is taking in more than just what the speaker said. They're also taking in the visual information, which includes the environment and people and places, any movements or mannerisms, identification of who is talking, directionality, who's speaking to whom, and any facial information such as affect or mood or subtleties. In the next box, analyze sender, one is looking at all those pieces that one just took in and determining the salience. So what are the most important aspects of what was just received? And then in the third box, release form, this is taken from Kalonimus, and this is where one releases the message from the form, whether spoken or signed, and accesses the image. And if you're familiar with Seleskovich, she places this as the second step in a 3-step process, and she says after you take in the message that the speaker says, there's an immediate and deliberate discarding of the words. In the fourth box, we get to what every interpreter is always looking for, which is the meaning. And here, however, we're looking more than just what the person said. We're asking, what is the point here? So is it what the person is saying, or what they are doing, or what something looks like? In the fifth box, we're analyzing the receiver. So what does the person need to know in order to make this make sense? For example, who is talking to whom? And is the context or the visual information and the topic known to the person? What or where can this person see, if anything? And what is the person's background, language or personal or interests? And then in the sixth box, we add the form to the message. And this is where there's been a lot of modifications that happen and what people often think about when they think about deafblind interpreting. And this part gets broken down into linguistic categories, and it's also where most of the research has taken place. So, for example, the first one shown here, phonology, includes hand shape, location, movement, orientation, and two-handed signs. Then there's morphology, which includes non-manual signals of adjectives, adverbs, or questions. Syntax, which can include yes-no questions, WH questions, other uses of the sign yes and no. Word order, whether subject, verb, object, or another. Initial you, so pointing to you at the beginning of a sentence. Head shaking, being signed as not, and also indexing. And finally, there are lexical changes, such as more uses of nouns and pronouns, and signs followed by fingerspelling. And then in the last box, if we're looking at the process of something that happens in a straight line, we deliver the message. And this can be done with one- or two-handed tactile signing, close vision, restricted field, doing voiceover, tactile finger spelling, typing, or some other way. And then, and probably the most important of all, is speed and pace and finding space. And while all of this is going on, there's the monitor function happening, which is basically you watching yourself doing all of this and taking note of what's working or what might need repair and which particular box might need more attention at any given moment. And then finally there's feedback happening, that is taking in something from somebody else. And if the feedback is coming from the deafblind person, it would be back channeling. And this can come in the form of tapping or squeezing or nods, whether tactile or head nods. Okay, so that was a very quick and dirty overview, and now it's your turn. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be interpreting a 60-minute segment. And it is a program, it's from a program that aired about a year ago called Is Sugar Toxic? Have any of you seen this? Either the 60 Minutes program or the longer YouTube lecture? So you can go up to the participants box, and for those of you who have joined since we started, if you drag your mouse over the check mark, there's a yes and no that will come down in the drop-down menu. So you can vote yes or no if you've seen the 60-minute segment or any of Dr. Lustig's work. Okay, so 2 of you have, and everybody else hasn't. So good. It's great information, which I just love anyway. So glad everyone will get to see this now. So you're going to be interpreting for one of 2 people, and I will tell you about one of them, and then you will get to meet the other one. And this is going to get tucked in the back of your heads as box 5, which is to analyze the receiver part. And so what you want to have tucked back there is, who is this person and what do they need to know in order to make this make sense? And then you're going to watch about a minute of the 60-minute segment as prep, and then you'll interpret that same minute. So, okay, the first person is Renee Pellerin. He has Usher syndrome type 1 and is an ASL user. And he uses a combination of tactile, tracking, and visual input. And the second person is Randy Pope, who you will meet in just a minute. Now, if you're watching this with someone else, or if you're in a group or a group of people, or you have someone else available, if you can pair up, and one of you will interpret, and the other one of you will be one of those people. So I will give you a minute to pair up, if possible. So what's going to happen is you will meet Randy, and then you'll watch the first minute of the video. And this is both to prep and also to take note of what's in boxes 1 and 2. That is, let me flip back to there for a minute. So the first box here is receive. So this is what you're taking in. You're taking in what the speaker said, and also everything else that you're seeing. What's in the environment, who's talking to who, any movements or mannerisms. And then you're analyzing that. So of everything you just took in, what they said and what they did, what might be the most important things to convey here. Okay, so I will pull up a video and you will get to meet Randy. So just watch that part, and then when I show the video, just take it in. Don't interpret it yet or even interpret in your head. Just watch it and let it sink in. So hold on here. Okay, so breathe and relax. So anything that might come into consideration here, if you're going to be interpreting for either Randy or Renee, let your mind consider all the things that you took in, what the speaker said, and also everything else other than what the speaker said, and what might be important to include in your interpretation. Okay, now if you're with somebody else and you're able to be paired up, one of you will be Randy or Renee and the other one will interpret. Now if you're alone, you get to tactile interpret with yourself, which means put your non-dominant hand over your dominant hand. And so interpret into your own hand that way. Okay, we're going to interpret the part we just saw. And remember to breathe before we start. And here we go. Okay, we have one person with a frozen screen. If you have any other windows opened, if you can close any windows or programs other than the one you're in right now, that will help allow more space on your computer and hopefully prevent things from freezing up. So, how did that go? So thinking just of box 2, everything that you took in and what might have been most important of all of those things, and taking into consideration box 5, who that person was that you were interpreting to and what they needed to know to make this make sense. Which items of everything you took in might be the most important to convey in order to make this piece understood? You can type into the chat box. Okay, 2 people have frozen screens. I'm hoping that not many other people did. We'll be looking at a different format of this later, so hopefully the other way of playing this will work better. Oh, the interpreter screen is frozen too. It's not on my end. Joshua, if you have any suggestions, let us know. Is it still frozen? Is testing the interpreter screen still frozen, or can you see the interpreter okay? Joshua, any suggestions? Yeah, Joshua was saying you may have to log out and log back in if it remains frozen. Okay, while people are going out and back in, if that's necessary, wondering what the experience was like for the others of you. Okay, never having done tactile interpreting, having a difficult time. Anyone else? Yeah, it is a different experience, tactile interpreting to oneself. Not something you'd have to do normally, but just for fun here. Teresa's asking if we're still talking about the salient info or the tactile experience. Well, both. Just what came up as pertinent to you in this experience. And mostly I'm thinking also of what was most salient to you in everything that you took in. How do you decide what to include? What do you feel might be most important? Yeah, Brandon says interesting to work on how to shift to show different speakers. Okay, so what we're going to do now is watch a sample of a deaf and hearing interpreting team do this. And due to the technology limitations, we're going to do it a little bit different. So what I'm going to do is put the video up, and you'll see it come up in your box, but you're going to have to press play yourself. And it might take a little bit of time if some of your systems are slower. So, and if there's some buffering happening. So I'll put it up and wait a few seconds to make sure it comes up for everybody. And what you're going to do is watch from 53 seconds. You can arrow up into the 53-second spot and watch that to the 2-minute spot. And while you're watching, jot down what you notice that you see the interpreter team doing in order to make this make sense. Yes, Teresa's saying tactiling into her own hand made her more aware of a smaller signing space. Yeah, Richard's saying I was working to include the content but didn't do anything with the environmental information. Okay, and give me a minute here to get the video up. Okay, so I'm going to play this, but you're not going to be able to see what's on my screen. So push play for yourself, and you fast forward it to the 53-minute point, and watch till you get to 2 minutes. Okay, and while you're watching, jot down what you see the interpreter doing to make it make sense. This is the interpreter interpreting for Renee. Oops. Okay, let me know when you've stopped the video at around the 2-minute point, just so I know everybody's together here. So the question was, what did you notice about what the interpreter or interpreter team was doing to make this make sense? Of any of the things that we talked about from box 2 of everything that was taken in, and then deciding what was most important, and any modifications that the interpreter might have made, anything that happened at all in the process that might have helped make this make sense. What did you notice from watching the team work? Can't see the video. Did you push play on your own? From my pushing play, it doesn't come all the way through. So you have to push play on your own and then watch from 53 seconds to about 2 minutes. See the video, but not the interpreters. The very first minute is just the lecture itself, so you have to fast forward to about 1 minute in. And then you'll see a split screen with the interpreters on the left and the video, the lecture on the right. Okay, Carrie is saying both team members had such a very small signing space. Reminded her of limited languages proficiency clients. The small sign space was very noticeable when seeing the contrast between the two interpreters. So, if you're not seeing a place to click, you might have to scroll down a little bit. So you get there's an arrow that should come up underneath the videos, under where the captions are. There should be a blue button that you can push to push play. Okay, if you're waiting for the web tour in circles, it could be that your system is slow. If you have any other programs open, it will help to close any other programs so that only this program is open on your computer, including if Skype is automatic on your computer, to close down Skype too. That will help. Teresa's saying the tactile interpreter used more deliberate signs. Richard's saying the interpreter used their left hand to represent one speaker and the right hand to represent the other. Role shifting from right to left hand, small signing space, and the material was condensed to the pertinent information. The lists were truncated or omitted, but the category was represented. Okay, great observations. So now to put all of these things that you're noticing here into a little bit of a categorical order here. Let's fast forward on the slides here a minute. So this is just a little bit expanded version of what we just looked at in terms of adding form, box 6. So some of the things like you just noted in terms of location, there's reduced space for restricted visual field. And what you're seeing here is a combination of restricted visual field and tracking and tactile, sort of using all three of those here. Smaller signing space and tactile ASL. And what I'm saying here are the research that's been done looking at tactile ASL. Directionality, yes, no, showing constructed action. You saw some of that. Body parts moving towards the point of contact for contact signs, and signs that may be moved away from contact with the body. Christy's saying also how the interpreter was sitting. I also wondered how to prevent back problems when interpreting in that setting. Some people bring pillows to help with that also. And there's things you can do with putting a leg up on a stand to help your back position ergonomically can help also. So morphology is another linguistic category that we're looking at changes in. For example, with frequency, there will be slower signing and with additional repetition of signs showing regularity. So these are some things to keep in mind. We'll look at this video again, things to keep in mind as you're looking at the video. In terms of syntax, non-manual markers expressed as manual signs, yes-no questions, and the addition of the question sign, and then how the message is delivered, the mode, the speed and pace, slowing down a finger spelling, signing space, and the inclusion of visual information. Okay, and one more. And then feedback, which is back channeling in a sense. So keep in mind if you see any of this also. There could be tapping on the hand or tapping on the leg or nodding or any feedback that you're getting, back channeling feedback from the person. So we're going to watch this video again and keep all of these things in mind while you're watching it. Watch a little bit larger chunk of it and specifically look at for all of these items. And if you want to have the PowerPoint in front of you, if you go to the NCRTM page, if you, after I told you to shut down all your other browsers, if you still happen to have that opened and you go to the bottom of the NCRTM page, you can click on the link to pull up the PowerPoint. And there's also a plain text version of the PowerPoint too. Okay, so we'll go back and watch the same thing again. Let me put this back in the browser. Hopefully it will come up for everybody now. So again, the first minute is just the lecture itself. So you'll want to fast forward to 53 seconds, 55 seconds in, and watch it to the 3.5-minute mark, or rather 3 minutes and 50 seconds. And I will play it also just so we're about on the same page. And let me know when you've gotten there. So again, watch this, jot down any of the things we just talked about that you might notice. Okay, we got to the stopping point at my end. Just wait to hear from you if you've reached that point also. Leave a little bit of extra time here for people's systems. Are you all finished? Okay, Felicia noted that the interpreter was leaning in, and Teresa noted there was back channeling by Renee, both tapping and with head nodding. Placement by comparing. What else did the rest of you notice? Going from the list of things we just looked at. How did they make this make sense? Oh, sorry, some of you are still not able to see the video. Now, let me put the link in the chat box, and hopefully you can maybe bring this up in another browser and watch it on your own in a different window. That might help. And for some reason, it's not letting me paste. Let me try this again. There we go. Okay, try clicking on that link and see if you can pull it up in another browser, Catherine. Okay, Brandon's saying the feedback nods were clear. And there might have been feedback squeezes also. Yeah, Catherine, I think I was experiencing the same thing while the video was on. She was not able to type. I found I was not able to type either. So we're learning about how the system works here too. And Teresa's noting slower finger spelling. Okay, good. Glad you are able to see this on another screen. I know a lot of it goes by quickly, so what we're going to do is zero in on a few of these items, and I'll give you the minute markings to go to so you can just watch a few seconds at a time and be able to note some of these things. Brenda's saying overall the pace was markedly slower and longer pauses between the paragraphs or thoughts. Oh, Teresa's saying right-clicking and detaching the box allowed her to type. Okay, all these things are good things that we're learning about the system. So in terms of directionality and role shifting, go back and look at from 55 seconds to 106. That's the first instance of that. I will play it here myself and let you watch it also. So again, 55 seconds to 1 minute and 6 seconds, and you'll see some directionality happening for indicating the speakers. Okay, the next place, I'm just going to be calling them out as I'm doing it here so you can follow along and click on the different minute markings yourself. Go to 1 minute and 49 seconds and play till 1 minute and 55 seconds. That's the next example of directionality happening. So from 1:49 to 1:55. Thanks, Joshua. Okay, the next one to look at is at 2:36. And Joshua, if you could type those in, because I'm having the same problem everyone else is, can't type in the box and play the video at the same time. The system only lets us do one or the other. Did you lose video? Okay, if your video is going out, it might be easier if you click on the link that I gave you so that you can pull it up in a separate screen and be able to watch. Okay, the next place to go to is at 3 minutes and 6 seconds, 3:06. Thanks, Joshua. And I will play that here for the camera too. Okay, now I'm going to point out some areas of slower finger spelling. So if you go to 2 minutes and 49 seconds, and look at the finger spelling. And go up to 4:14. Okay, now we're going to go to what a couple of people noticed of the interpreter leaning in. So if you go to 2:18, at the sign for food. Then there's several more, two at 21 seconds, 22, and 26. Excuse me, at 2:21, 22, and 26. And one that we hadn't talked about earlier was the time repetition happening and slowing down of time. So if you go to, there's two places that happened. One's at 3:56. And again at 4:19. Carrie's asking, did you tell us the educational background of this client? I don't know, actually. And a few examples here of signs not touching the body. It's one marked difference that often comes up. So the first one of those is at 1:16. I'll play that one again. The sign for hospital at 1:16. At 4:02, there's another one. at 4:02, and I will play it again here. The sign sick is made away from the body. There's another at 4:26. It also comes up at 4:29. So at 4:26, you'll see the sign for sick, or disease rather, made away from the body. And then at 4:29, you'll see the sign reason, also made away from the body. I'll play that again. And there's only one example here, just for one other category of visual information, which happened at 5:10. So this interpreter team chose not to put in a lot of the visual information that was happening. I mean, the environmental information, rather. So if you go up to 5:10, you'll see one example of that. Now there's a couple of other examples I want to give you, and then we're going to switch to another interpreting team doing the same video and see what differences you note between that, looking especially at the next category, which is non-manual signs or other adverbs being made as manual signs. So the first one to look at is at 1:48. And the next one at 2:50. So the emphatic marker moves it at those two places. Okay, there's a few other things that were there and some examples of overt yes-no questions, but we'll hold on those for right now. And I'll give you another team and see what you can pick out from this one. What might be, what's different about it. Hold on, haven't put it up yet. So for those of you that are not able to see the screen through the program, you can pull that up on yourself, and I'll put the other one back up here for you to watch. Oops, hold on. So again, start at 53 again, 53 seconds, and go to 3:15 and see what you notice on this one that might be different. And hopefully you'll be able to see it because my screen is frozen, so I'm not actually able to pull it up. Hold on. Okay, yep, Judith noticed there's leaning in and pointing to signify to speakers instead of switching hands. And Cindy says the hearing interpreter, and that's yours truly, by the way, is interpreting to a CDI, and the CDI is interpreting to a deafblind client. Yes, hearing interpreter, interpreting, it's relaying to a deaf interpreter who is interpreting to the deafblind person, yes. Yeah, Teresa noticed the sign sick is signed away from the body. Brenda noticed tapping on both the hand and the leg. Yep, there's a lot of back channeling happening. You have to kind of look for it down on Randy's right hand. If you look carefully, you see quite a number of instances of back channeling with taps on the leg. Carolyn noticed a slight lean in from the interpreter for contact signs. Signing and finger spelling much faster. More detailed information given. Just reading what some people are commenting here. The detailed lists are included. Signing is faster. And the role shifting to be more at shoulder level than with the right to the left hand, as the other interpreter was doing. The visual information showing the pictures of the brands. Using tracking rather than tactile, right? Lynn is asking if there's a list of these features at the time codes so we can study more and look back on them later as well. I don't have them listed out with the time codes. I have it here in my hand, but I didn't type that up. But I could potentially make that available. So let's go back and look at a couple of those instances specifically. And one I want to first focus on was the one I had you look at on the previous interpretation right at the end, where the non-manual markers were made manual, or the adjectives were made manual. And if you'll go to minute 221, notice the affect, that's the affect sign that's made manual at minute 221. And I'll play that here. I'm going to play that again because it's being recorded here. That sign right at, I believe it's 222 of wow, exact same sign used by both interpreters at the same place, which was very interesting. This happens again at, if you'll fast forward on this one to 7:14. You'll see the same sign used with back channeling as that's used. I will play it one more time. And then fast forward up to 9:54. And you'll see the same sign used. There's a little bit more use in this interpreting team of visual information. So let's look at a couple of examples of those. One is at 3:04. And notice how the interpreter points out that visual information from the video is being shown. And Carol's noting this interpreter looks much more comfortable sitting in her chair than the other one sitting at the edge of the chair. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that can be set up, and it's a whole other category of ergonomics, but definitely something to work on and to notice. So I'm going to play 3:04 again and look at how the interpreter sets up that she's now going to be including visual information. Okay. Now fast forward up to 4:42. I'm going to play that one again. So notice both how the interpreter sets up that we're now going to be looking at visual information than what it is. forward to 9:55, so between 9:55 and 9:59 is the next example. I'm going to play that again for the camera. You can see her setting up the visual information, showing the visual information, and seeing the back channeling feedback that she's getting. And the final one on including visual information here happens at 11:13. Notice how it's set up between the hearing and deaf interpreter, and then how it's done by the deaf interpreter. I'm going to play that one again here. And a few examples I want to point out here. We mentioned it, but just so it's a little more obvious, of back channeling. And you've probably seen some of the back channeling that's happening on the back of the hand with the taps. But there's several instances where there's back channeling happening on the leg. So if you look down at the bottom of the screen at Randy's right hand and go to, there's two places. Well, there's quite a few. Start at 2:11. The first one's at 2:11. Then there's one at 2:24. So look at those two, 2:11 and 2:24. And then 2:59. Oops. Okay, so now that you've gotten a bunch of samples of two different interpreting teams doing this, you get to try it again for yourself. So I'm going to go back to the original one that I showed you, and you can try it again. Again, if you're with a team, if you're with another person there, then one of you be the interpreter and one of you be the receiver, and switch places if you've done it in one direction. And we'll do about the first 2 minutes again. and I let you know when to stop. Let me pull up. I'm going to go back to the original one I showed you, so you won't have to click on it yourself. And it's a little bit more grainy, but hopefully it will be a little bit easier to watch this way. Oops, I was just talking, but I forgot to press talk. Let me try it again. So how'd it go that time? So any differences between that and the first time you did this? Teresa's saying added question sign to indicate that the interviewer was asking a question. Christy, yes, very much improved. When you say improved, what do you mean? What did you do differently this time? Tell me some details of if it worked better for you, what was working better, what happened differently. Yes, Carolyn incorporated the lean in for contact signs. Yeah, Teresa at the end, when he said that it can be avoided, I noticed that I shrugged my shoulders, but also shrugged my open hands by lifting them briefly. Great. What other differences did some of you do? Christy slowed the material down with deliberate role shifting, processed and gave condensed information, did not have to sign on my face, leaned in instead. Okay, we've got about a little over 15 minutes left, and I can give you a little bit of a teaser of some things that we're going to do in the online learning community that starts on Monday. But I wanted to ask if there's any questions first that you have of what we've talked about so far. Okay, just for a brief try at some of the other types of material we're going to be doing. What we've done so far is very content heavy, so there wasn't as much visual information included. So we're going to try another one just for a few minutes just to get a taste of something different, of a whole lot more visual information. So we're going to meet the deafblind person first, and then you'll watch about 1.5 minutes of prep, and then we'll go back and give it a try a little bit. And Carolyn is asking, how long is there normally between turn taking for the interpreter? It really varies. It's individual preferences. Some people like 15 minutes, some 20, 30 minutes. It depends on the same as any other interpreting, on the depth of the material and the mode of interpreting. Sometimes if you're doing tactile or signing in a small space, people prefer shorter segments, and just a lot of individual differences, so it's a little bit hard to say definitively. Christine, my main concern is adding the environmental visual information without losing the spoken information. Right, that goes back to the second box of making those judgment calls. So the same as any other interpreting, what's most important here, and what's going to get the message that we're taking in across, and is what's more important, the content, if it's very content heavy like this one is, or the visual information, and are there places where I can have enough space to get in the visual information without losing the content, and what might this person be interested in, one more than the other. So lots of different, all these factors in analyzing the receiver go into making those judgments. And Veronica is asking, how is the back channeling different from I'm following you and I'm not understanding your interpretation? That's what back channeling is. Back channeling is that type of feedback that you get from the person that tells you that they are following or that they're not understanding. And with tactile back channeling, and not understand could be a squeeze. So that's often a sharp, definite squeeze. That means I missed something, versus the tapping, whether on the back of the hand or on the leg or any other place that's convenient. That means I'm following you. Okay, I'm going to put the other video up now. So again, you'll meet the other deafblind person, and then you'll get a little bit of prep, and then we'll go back and do it again. And Christy's asking, what is the advantages or disadvantages of the deafblind client using both hands versus one hand and following the interpreter? Individual preference. Some use one, some use the other. Sometimes the person will use one in general, but switch to two when there's more information being taken in, like two different speakers or more environmental information, but really individual preference. Okay, here we go. Okay, ready? Your turn to do this one. And first, Debbie's asking, also wondering the same thing as Veronica, have often interpreted for a deaf-blind autistic person and didn't realize that the hand taps are back channeling and I'm following you rather than just I'm bored and playing around. Oh, okay, well, you learned something new. And you'll see a lot more examples of this if you take the online learning community that starts Monday. There's a little more emphasis on that area also. Okay, I'm going to play this again, and I'll just do use the same one so you don't have to click on it yourself. But because I'm not able to fast forward in this format, we'll watch the intro, Jamie's intro again, and then you'll get to interpret for a little bit of that. Okay, your turn. Go. I'll go on and watch a little bit of the interpretation with this. It's a little bit grainy, but it'll give you a little bit of an idea. Okay, if you were not able to see the signing, I'll add the link there, and you can watch that after to get a taste of it yourself. So, how'd that go interpreting that? Everybody was in stunned silence. Okay, I won't force you. We just have a couple of minutes left here. Oh, this is great. Teresa saying, I took advantage of Jamie's intro, the time to set the scene. Cindy, I think I put too much interpreting in there. Carolyn noticed a lot of nodding for back channeling. Veronica, I was impressed at how close my interpretation was to the CDIs. Cool. Well, if you take the online learning community, you'll get a lot more practice with this one. So just to close want to, here's all the references if you need those. And I'd like to thank all the people that helped make these videos and put all of these together. There's all the deafblind individuals who are in them, and the interpreters and the video people that were very, very helpful in doing this. So appreciate all of their work. And again, the online learning community starts on Monday, and you'll get more of the same. They'll go for 4 weeks, and Carrie will be sending out an announcement to whoever was on this if you would be interested in taking that. If you'd like to do more discussion or learn of other announcements, we have NTFDBI has a Google group on deafblind interpreting, and you can send the request to the address here, info@deafblindinterpreting.org. We also occasionally send out announcements of training opportunities and conferences, and so you can send an email to the same address and ask to be added to that list if you would like. And our big announcement, our big event that's coming up is a Deafblind Day. That's going to be happening the day before the RID conference on August 8th in Indianapolis. And this is a first ever type of event. It's a day for deafblind people and interpreters and interpreter coordinators to all come and learn together. And this is again, never happened before. So we're quite excited about this. All sorts of opportunities, and you can visit our website, and we will have a new website up any day now at deafblindinterpreting.org, and you can see the schedule of events, and we'll be sending out registration information within a day or two or so, we hope. So they'll be coming out any minute now. Other resources we have on our website, and again, there'll be more, and that will be updated quite a bit once our new website gets up. And we are on Facebook. You can like us on Facebook, and there's a lot of announcements sent out there at NTFDBI or National Task Force on Deafblind Interpreting without the hyphen. You'll get two different places if you go with and without a hyphen. So you want to go without the hyphen for our Facebook page. And we're also on LinkedIn. And that's it. Thank you all very much for coming and attending. Appreciate your being here and participating. Just going back to what was left in the box, that Teresa's saying that it was a series of video clips without talking, so it was more easy to transition between scenes. Yeah. So, well, again, thank you. Appreciate your attention, and it's right on time. Carrie, did you have anything else before we close out? And hearing none, I guess not. How did you get the text version of the PowerPoint? If you go to the NCRTM page where you logged on and scroll down to the very bottom, there is the PowerPoint is there, and there's also a plain text version of the PowerPoint. And this recording will be on, it's usually on the next day. I'm not sure, Joshua, you can let us know if it's when that will be up, but that will be available also. And I think that's it. I'll turn it over to Carrie, unless there's anything else. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, interpreters. And Joshua is saying that recording should be available tomorrow. Great. Thanks very much, Joshua. Appreciate your help, too. Okay, have a good night, everybody. Carrie, we're not hearing your audio. I'm seeing the interpreters talking, so I know you're talking, but there's no audio coming through. Carrie, sorry to interrupt. If you can maybe press the talk button. I'm thinking maybe the talk button is not pressed. We're not getting your audio.